Hey, we want to welcome you to the first time we're going to try this. This is kind of a trial run. You know Kyle and Crystal. Hey, that's them. There they are. This is going to be kind of a trial run. I just want to get you in on some conversations that we've been having, and we're going to call this kind of living in quarantine. There's a lot of you out there with small kids at home. With my case, our kids are grown. Not in the house, and then we always joke about Kyle and Crystal because they fit in that middle part. They've got 2 teenage boys, then you've got Aubrey, who's, how old's Aubrey now? 6 going on 30. So a lot of fun, a lot of attitude, and it's just good. I want to talk about what it is to kind of live in quarantine. And before we do, there's a passage of scripture when Missy and I were raising our kids that we sort of took as a takeoff. It's in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 6. It says this. It says, "These commands that I give you today are to be upon your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along on the road, when you lie down and when you get up." Basically what Moses is leaving with the children of Israel before he dies is teach your family while you're together. Teach them at home. Teach them in everything that you do, no matter what's going on. And we find ourselves, and you guys would definitely agree, we find ourselves in a place where you're together a whole lot nowadays, aren't you?
Yep.
Yeah, and I know Crystal being a teacher and our preschool director here and preschool teacher, and Kyle with all of his background and everything that they've got going on at their home. We're not going to get really wide span with this. Just going to ask a couple of really simple questions. And I would love to tell you I wrote a bunch of questions on my paper. But I really just kind of wrote one because I feel like that we're all living in the middle of this, in the middle of quarantine. So here's my question for you guys. Tell me how you're doing living in quarantine with 3 kids at home, with trying to keep their schoolwork together, with trying to do everything that needs to be done. Tell me how it's going.
You want to go first?
There's good days and bad days.
Yeah.
There's some days that are smooth and everything's rolling, and then there's other days that are just hits a wall every little bit.
Right.
It's kind of like before all this hit. You have good days and bad days, but your bad days you're kind of stuck.
Yeah.
With nowhere to go.
So you got an illustration recently of a bad day?
Yeah, we might have shared this story already.
Yeah, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Yeah, it was a dinner one night. We were all talking at the table and people talking over each other, kind of fighting for conversation, picking on each other. It was just one of those days that my patience was not well suited for what was about to happen. We have 2 teenage boys, Garrett's 16 and Mason's 13. And Mason got up to take something to the sink and went to come back, and that 16-year-old thought it would be funny to pull the bench out from underneath him.
Nice.
And on Mason's way down, he kind of caught that rib on the wood bench and hit the floor. Of course, that didn't feel good, and we could see that in his face. Lost his breath a little bit. Of course, we turned to look at his brother who had done that, and he kind of had a fearful face of like, oh, didn't quite mean to do that. So Kyle helped Mason up, and I was holding it in, trying not to blow my top.
Right.
And when he lifted up his shirt, and I saw this big scratch, and of course, Mason trying to fight, crying. I just looked at Garrett and I said, "You should go down to your room before I sin." So he walked down his room, but I just couldn't hold it in, and there happened to be a little Gatorade bottle as I got up, and I just grabbed it and may have chunked it, and it hit the wall.
Didn't hit anyone.
Didn't hit anyone.
Hit the wall.
Okay.
Strategic chunking.
No need to call DSS.
No, and I took myself outside.
Yeah?
Yep.
Kyle, tell us what happened once Crystal went outside.
I started washing dishes and cleaning the kitchen because that's safe. It's safe space to be in. I mean, I'd love to just give Crystal credit for that feeling of tension all the time. It's we've all seen the videos of like the the bottle of Coke and people dropping Mentos in it. I feel like that we're all walking around with this container, and like anything could bump that Mento into the Coke, and everything
Right.
just explodes. It's almost like this feeling of balancing things. And so, I was proud of her for at least, expressing her feelings. I've kind of drawn back, and I almost, always look at Facebook and stuff like that, but I tend to want to go sit on the couch and just go, get focused in on this. Sure, I hear noises going on, but I don't want to knock anybody off balance and them explode. And so that's been my, I guess my MO through some of this, is just to back up and give more flexibility or more space. That's what I tell myself to make it feel better, but it's not. We're not leaning into those things, and I don't know. It'd be a good thing to have conversations, but I just feel like we're trying to be so sensitive to each other that we're avoiding some stuff, that we need to be doing.
I kind of feel like we all sort of find ourselves in that place, and we've joked about it, and we're a fun staff, and we laugh and pray and cry and everything that we do together. But one of the things we talked about is just probably not probably, throw probably out the window, all the probabilities are gone. Everyone, you all, us, everyone finds themselves in the exact same situation. So we were even talking about this morning, that we've been making phone calls, we've been doing video chats, and we've been sending emails. Our deacons have been reaching out to families. We've been trying to stay connected. And to a person, for me, in the numbers of videos, y'all have shared this as well, everybody that I ask, how are you doing, says, we're doing good, how are you? Now, one of two things is happening. Number one, everybody's doing really, really good. And this has been the greatest thing in the entire world, and we should probably stay in quarantine for the rest of our lives. Or we could take maybe one of three things. Or we could say there's just a bunch of liars sitting at home. Or honestly, maybe we're all sitting there going, I don't know what good is, but I think I'm doing as good as I can possibly do. And we joked about this a little bit, and asking, are you really doing good? It might open up the floodgates. And that's okay. As a staff, as pastors, as ministers, that all of us are, we want to be able to help, and we find ourselves in the same place.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate the humor that you all have in your family, and the fact that you can laugh at chucking a Gatorade bottle at one of your kids without hitting them.
Didn't throw it at him.
Not at him. I didn't.
Down the
My bad. It
stairs.
was down the steps. He just happened to be in that general direction. My bad. But which is, again, it's funny. Nobody got hurt. It was still funny. But still, what do you guys find as the most? I'll say the most. What do you find is a really difficult thing in the middle of all this? Just as a family, with two teenage boys, a young daughter, yourselves, and y'all are from Florida. You don't get to do a drive-by to go see your parents. You don't get to just throw your hand up and say we're gonna go spend the day with grandparents. What do you think? What do you think? Share some of the real, authentic.
Yeah, I think for me, and this is always a thought, this is something Crystal has helped me process. Like, I want to make the most of the time I have with my kids. And so there's always this underlying feeling, now that we have more time, how do I help my wife keep my kids focused on school? How do I give them their space? How do I raise them well, which means teaching them how to do things and to be responsible. But then how do I lean in and give them quality time? And just the feeling of juggling all those things, but then going, man, I don't feel like I'm doing any of this well. Like, I don't feel like I'm taking advantage of this opportunity that I've been given. It's kind of the same thing that I feel at work. I always feel like there's something more. And so in trying to navigate all that, I kind of find myself just getting into I pick none of them.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out how to do any of them well, I wind up going, well, I can't do any of this well. Let's just exist until this is over with. And then there's not a realistic timeline really of when this is over with. And so I just find myself existing in this no man's land, I guess.
Right.
And I don't want to share that with anybody and ask for help, because everybody's doing the same stuff I am. And so who am I to struggle more or to require more help and all that stuff. And I don't want to lean into my wife, because she's struggling with her own stuff. So we just kind of find ourselves kind of existing in our own bubbles, just trying to stay alive.
Wow.
So
It's a good word.
Yeah.
Let me ask Mama here. Okay, not only mom with 3 kiddos at home, but also a teacher.
Mm.
So, hey, let's automatically take everything that our kids were doing in school, let's bring it home, and whether the kids get to go back to school or not this year, obviously there's going to be some gaps that have to be filled in. And I've known you long enough to know you're a very scheduled person.
Mhm.
You like to get things done in an orderly way in a certain amount of time. And then your poor 3 kids happen to have a teacher as a mom. Tell me about being at home and trying to do school from home, because you've got kids using computers, and then you've got Aubrey using packets.
Yep.
You're trying to interface with teachers. Are you struggling with guilt? Are you struggling with frustration? What do you, tell me that.
Well, navigating it all actually
Mm-hmm.
is what's the most difficult right now, and trying to figure out like what really is the most important.
Right.
Which, you know, the teacher in my heart is like, oh yeah, like these kids gotta still learn, they gotta still be able to accomplish the goals that they were supposed to have, you know, these years. But then the mom in me too is like, okay, like I spoke earlier, like everybody kind of has their bad days, and
Sure.
it's not usually on the same day.
Yeah.
And so trying to navigate that, you know, and then the motivation behind it all is just really hard
Yeah.
to keep wanting to go, because, you know, none of us really know what's going to continue to happen or what this future is going to, I mean, we know eventually we're going to get out of quarantine,
Sure.
but the timeline is just, you don't know. And so just trying to navigate all of that, and then, you know, in every house, every child's different. And so, you know, trying to meet each of those child's needs and their type of love language or
Sure.
motivation,
Sure.
it's just difficult
Yeah.
to do it day in and day out all day long.
Right. So one more quick one, and we're not going to take a lot of time with this first one because I want to invite you, if this is your thing and you enjoy this, because we're gauging this off of how we can minister to you all. You want to send in some questions. When this video gets posted, put questions in the comments. And maybe we can come back the next week and try to see if we can answer some of the questions and see where we can go with this. But I want to ask one more question. It may be geared more toward Crystal, but maybe you can jump in too, Kyle. Last week was spring break. And I mean, I know for you guys, I work with y'all. I know what your schedules are, and y'all had spring break plans. Y'all were going to go see your family in Florida. If I remember right, y'all were going to go through New Orleans and hang out for a day. Yeah, avoid New Orleans. But you had plans. Your
Right.
kids probably knew about the plans.
Absolutely.
Everybody's plans are on pause. But even more than that, spring break last week, okay, no schoolwork, everybody takes a break, we're gonna breathe, you climb the hill behind your house, you play basketball, you throw football, you play Barbies, you watch Disney movies. Now school cranks back up this week.
This morning was hard.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to wake up, and then when they woke up, they wanted to just kind of just let me wake up. Let me get
Right.
woke up. Mondays are our days to be here at the church, and so I knew I had to get everybody up and get everybody going, so that I could get up here to get that done, and it just wasn't working. Aubrey was not motivated. It took her an hour and a half to finish one writing assignment. Mason came up with his sweatshirt on, his hoodie tied right here to his chin, and was still kind of heavy eyes.
That's my leave me alone face.
Yeah. Garrett was like, I'm getting up, can I get a shower first to wake me up? I'm like, okay, let's just delay this even more. So I can see that it's definitely going to take a lot of effort to finish this year out well if
Okay.
we continue to stay in quarantine.
So as parents, kids at home, teacher background, there's a lot of parents that are trying to, listen, my kids graduated before Common Core math. I would have just said, phooey on it, I don't care, you're not gonna use it anyway, which thank God my kids are grown. But, here you guys are sitting down and there's schoolwork, probably some stuff that may even challenge y'all. And then there's stuff that has to be done. Now, you tell me, what's more important in the middle of this? Getting all the schoolwork done, letting your kids feel the tension that they're sitting in, letting them go to Deuteronomy and go, hey, we're going to teach you. You're going to do some of your work because it needs to be done. but we're also gonna be a family. Somebody jump in, tell me how that feels, and that'll be our last.
Yeah,
one.
absolutely. My heart in this, my initial reaction is, hey, you're not teachers. You're not gonna be held to that standard. I know that we're not, my wife is a teacher, but I know that my daughter's teacher and my boys' teachers are not sitting at their house going, they better do this right, and they better do this just how I'm doing it. They just want you to put the effort in, and I think it's tough, kind of welling up a little bit here because I know the struggle. And Crystal's struggling, and she was educated specifically for teaching and navigating and understanding principles, and I was not. And so when I sit with my daughter doing kindergarten stuff, I know what 2 + 2 is. I know some stuff about goats, but I struggle because I'm sitting there going, well, what does her teacher want her to know about goats? What is this whole thing about? Does this have to be a complete sentence? Did she write, was the period too big at the end of the sentence? I'm struggling. And of course, my wife kind of knows some of that stuff, but I get a realistic picture of, hey, Dad, you're sitting with your kid. They're walking through this stuff. You're making the effort. That doesn't mean quit, give up, just say, forget the whole thing, but be mom, be dad. You don't have to put a teacher hat on and pretend to be somebody you're not, but just sit with your kid. That's what we're doing this afternoon. Crystal's already said, hey, I'm going to need some help. And basically my help is I'm going to sit with you and we're going to struggle through this together, but I'm here. And I think that's it. And I think that's what our kids want to know. I think, I asked one of my kids last night, so, what do you think about this whole quarantine thing? And the legitimate answer was, I don't know. Welcome to the club. I can put some words together, but at the end of the day, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just want to get through it. I want to get to the thing where they say, okay, normal again. And that's what I'm shooting for. So just be with your kids. The expectation is for you to be their mom, for you to be their dad, and be with them and not know how to do Common Core math together.
They don't understand it either.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. So,
anything you want to add on that, or are you good?
No, I think so too. I mean, family's been around since the beginning of time.
Oh, wow.
Schooling hasn't always. I mean,
True.
just being
Some sort
being
of
real.
teaching, but
Yeah.
Right. Well, but back then the family was the teachers.
Right.
They were learning how to
Right.
do life, and I think that's what we still instill in our children is this is how we do life, and this is a whole new season, and a whole new era of life. But we're gonna learn how to do it together.
Cool. Well, thank y'all. We're gonna go ahead and wrap this up, trying to keep it a little bit short if we can. Again, do me a favor, and if you've got some questions you want to ask, we're gonna try to do this little series for, I don't know, a few weeks, just see how it takes off. We're trying new stuff because I'm 51. I've never lived in quarantine before, so this is new to me. My adult children call just to be able to talk to mom and dad, and I love it, but we're all trying to navigate this together. If you got questions or you got things you'd love for us to even talk about, put them in the comments when this posts, and just let us know. We'll see if this takes off, see what we can do with it. And between here and there, we are praying for you. Living in quarantine is a difficult thing. So we're praying for you. You pray for us. We love you, and we pray you have a great week. Love your kids. Love your family.
bye.
Bye.